Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tastemaker Talk, our bi-monthly webinar series where we talk about the many aspects of food blogging and content creation to help you manage your business effectively and reach your goals. I'm Abby Rodriguez, and joined as always by my lovely co-host, Candice Probst. So for anyone who has never listened to Tastemaker Talk, we always start with new food news from Candice before we get into our topic today, which is talking about creator trends for 2025, which we are excited to chat about with Mediavine. But before that, we are going to turn it over to Candice. Fill us in on what we need to know about food.
New food news. Okay, we're starting with one of the best things, ice cream. So they did like a big rundown of best to worst vanilla ice cream. Can you guys guess what number one was? It's
The
a little,
worst?
yeah, best, no, the best one.
Oh,
Start with
okay.
the best one.
I mean, I personally like Tillamook, but Jenny's ice cream is really good. And I don't know, Haagen-Dazs is pretty sweet.
All right,
Am
those are,
I close?
you're very close. Okay, Jenny.
Okay.
Huh. Yeah, I'm a Jenny's fan too.
Yeah.
Jenny loves Jenny's. How appropriate.
All right. How about you, Amanda?
I'm a local ice cream person, so I'm probably not going to get the top, but locally it's Brickley's for us in Rhode Island. But
Oh,
yeah,
I've
I would
never
take
heard of
Haagen-Dazs
that.
though. I'll take Haagen-Dazs as my guess.
Okay,
Okay.
well, your Haagen-Dazs comes in at number two. Haagen-Dazs is number two, followed by three is Tillamook, so very close, Abby. Number one was Van Leeuwen. Have you guys had that brand?
Yes,
It's like
I
a very
have.
like elevated, little kind cute tiny pints, like modern. They're very cute. So they said that simplicity can triumph when it's perfectly executed, and they did it. So if you want the perfect vanilla ice cream, but now my guess is you're probably wondering which ones were at the bottom. I think this goes to say because of people's preference and taste. The number one dairy-free choice was Cosmic Bliss. I think that, yeah, dairy, a plant-based one. Sadly, at number 11, 1 through 11, was So Delicious coconut milk. And I think it's because the coconut milk reigns pretty strong, in that one. Um, so that was number 12 with Oatly at number 9 and some other, but surprisingly, Talenti gelato was number 8. Like
Mhm.
I thought they,
Oh,
yeah,
well, that's not ice cream. That's gelato. I mean, if we're
I
getting
know.
technical, we don't want to get too nerdy here, though. I mean, I could talk about this for hours on end, but I feel like we're getting into the weeds with that.
Everyone likes to get nerdy about ice cream. So,
It's true.
um,
It's true.
so I shared that McDonald's was releasing a Grinch themed Happy Meal. So now I'm here to tell you that they're releasing a Taylor Swift themed meal, and it includes friendship bracelets.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to see how that performs. Are we just going to see mobs of people at McDonald's now?
I mean, I would think so because she's something else, man. I guess people are really into. As you already know, I'm a bigger Chiefs fan than I am a Taylor Swift fan, but I'm by association now. I mean, a fan of her because of the Kelsey brothers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but not like go to the concert. So, anyways, I think that they were very wise in doing that. So that was something I was going to tell you. Um, and then one last thing, which is not super, it's kind of sad, but have you guys seen all the recalls lately on cucumbers, carrots, ground beef, lunch meat?
Yeah.
Milk?
The
I mean,
listeria issue.
yeah. And so they were talking about like why everything has changed, and I don't fully understand it, but it's definitely something that is worth looking into, or even, asking ChatGPT, hey, what's going on with all the food recalls lately? So I just thought it was interesting, but they did acknowledge that we've had more food recalls than ever before. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was,
And it's still going on.
yeah, it's still going on. Daphne said she got a message today about cucumbers. Dang it, I put those in my cart today. Oh man.
So my question is like, what happens if you get it? Like if you eat something that has listeria, is it like E. coli? Like, do we know what happens physically to a person?
I think it's pretty bad. It can definitely dehydrate you. I know E. coli is much worse. We had a friend
Yeah.
a friend of mine who had a friend from high school who almost passed away because they were in intensive care for like 3 weeks
Oh,
in school and got E. coli. And she was so, so sick. So I definitely think listeria is not great, but I don't think it's the same as E. coli if I understand correctly.
mm.
But
Well, not to throw McDonald's under the bus and their whole Taylor Swift and Grinch collaboration, but I got raging food poisoning like E. coli. I had to get hospitalized when I was in 6th grade from a McDonald's cheeseburger, which I have not eaten since I was 12 years old. I am now almost 37. So
like well,
it's a real thing. It's a real fear.
it is. They recently had to recall McDonald's on their lettuce. So it's not always either, just so people are aware. In fact, a lot of times it is the veggies. So,
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought
So
that was,
stay safe,
yeah,
everybody.
but my guess is you're probably wondering, it seems like it's happening more. So just to acknowledge it is happening more. So
Yeah.
that was my new food news. I should have ended on something a bit lighter.
Friendship bracelets for all. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple of community updates before we jump into our discussion. Tastemaker Conference 2025 is so close. It's just a few weeks away. We are so incredibly excited. Have Mediavine joining us as our title sponsor. But we have a couple tickets left. We met our sellout goal of 500 and then had so many people coming saying, hey, why are they sold out? We want tickets. So we opened up a few more tickets to accommodate as many people as we can since we do have a little extra space. So there are a handful left that you can grab the link in the show notes to see if there's any tickets left if you're tuning in listening to this. And I'll let Candace introduce Mediavine and our guest today.
Perfect. We are so honored to be joined with Amanda Martin for today's episode. Amanda is the Chief Revenue Officer for Mediavine, and Mediavine focuses on building sustainable businesses for content creators. And we know that getting signed with Mediavine is a huge accomplishment for any food creator. Mediavine is also the title sponsor for Tastemaker Conference 2025. So yay! And we feel so privileged to bring their services and wonderful team to you, not only today, but also in real life in Las Vegas. So Amanda, welcome to Tastemaker Talk and thanks for being here. Can you tell us a bit more about Mediavine and what sets you apart from other ad networks?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Mediavine is uniquely positioned in the ad monetization space because we're independently owned and we are publishers ourselves. So the history of the company was founded by publishers. And so starting with content creation and then morphing into ad management has really positioned us in a unique way to understand the challenges that food bloggers are under and the ever-changing industry that we're all approaching, but also having that history in our back pocket of understanding what it is actually like to physically create content and put all that effort in. And so I think the independence of not being funded externally allows us to make the right decisions and do the tough decisions that don't necessarily run to the bottom line, but run to the bottom line of our publishers has always been our focus.
Mm-hmm.
I joined Mediavine a little under 2 years ago from the buy side of the industry, and I used to buy ads on all of our sites, and obviously respected it so much that I came and joined and had to be part of it.
That's so exciting. And I think that's just a testament to what Mediavine has built, just being independently owned and what you guys have done. And for those who have been with Tastemaker since the beginning, you guys have been champions and partnered with us. And I just want to speak to that, how much we appreciate that, and just seeing how much you lift up this industry and how much you have just advocated and provided resources and support. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and I think speak on behalf of a lot of people too for how much you have put into that. So glad to have you here. So glad to have you guys sponsoring as always. In terms of our topic today, I'm actually really excited to talk about this because I think we talk a lot about technical stuff. We've had you guys on lots of webinars over the years, and we're talking about SEO, we're talking about technical things. And I think that it's really refreshing to be talking about trends for 2025. What can we be looking forward to? What can we be putting our eyeballs out towards the future and working towards, because I know, there's a little bit of panic sometimes too, of like, oh, it gets reactive to things that are happening. And I feel like this is a refreshing, invigorating conversation of trends. So what do you see as the most significant trends in the creator economy at large that you anticipate for 2025?
So I think what's exciting is that if you're focusing on what to look forward to, as opposed to what you're worried about, you really can get invigorated by 2025, because there are some things that we thought would happen that aren't happening the same way we thought they were going to happen. For example, like the deprecation of the third-party cookie.
Yeah.
I think the importance of content creators in general is just growing. And even though there are headwinds that food bloggers are always working, that feel like they're being worked against, it's because of the importance of this segment in the industry and how much focus is put on there. I think the other exciting thing is something that can also have, worry associated with it, but the introduction of AI into this industry is a game changer. It's one of the things that's
Totally.
going to move us into a new world of what it means to be a content creator. And I think if you separate the efforts that are against content creators when it comes to AI, and you focus on the way that AI can help content creators, we feel like AI is an enabling tool for content creation by humans, not for something that should replace the human content creation. So I think AI is actually really exciting for 2025, because while it's still in its infancy, it's now not as new that it's not as scary to try some things and figure out what works for you. And I think food bloggers are just going to find a lot of efficiency in just how they create their fantastic product with that. And then I also think some of the trends that we're seeing is that the way people find content is changing, and it's getting a little more diversified, which can be scary because it means you have to kind of change how you source your traffic and where you go to for that traffic. But it also means that not all of your eggs are in one basket. And so I think that can actually be seen as a really exciting trend that's happening, because you're not relying on one partner to provide everything. And if you can start to build out a more diversified traffic source, you can have a little bit less volatility as we move into 2025.
Yeah. So we have AI and using that to your advantage, and diversification. And those are definitely two huge things we've been talking about. So in terms specifically of Mediavine and just ad networks in general, how do you see ad networks adapting to these trends? Like, what are you doing that's helping creators align with these shifts?
Yeah, I think there are two things. I think one is that there's a role that ad monetization partners play, and what the focus needs to be is how we do that and how we do it extremely well for our food bloggers and for just our content creators in general. And that is to focus on how well we monetize the traffic that you have on your site, and doing that as our number one priority. And for that, it means having us learn how we adapt differently to different traffic sources, how different platforms are viewing our traffic and our inventory, and ensuring that our ad experiences and just kind of the general flow of our advertising offering is set up for success and for prioritization on those platforms. It's important that if your site has earned that referral from SEO or from Pinterest or from TikTok, that you're capitalizing it at its highest amount. The other thing is that we work in a technology field, so AI is really good for us as well on the back end, and making sure that we're doing everything efficiently and that we're presenting your inventory in the most complex and compelling way to the advertising side of the business. So there's just a lot of innovation that hadn't previously been there for a few years. So I think that's what's really exciting for us to focus on. But our number one priority should be to getting you the most revenue for every single session and page view that you gain with your audience, because they're extremely valuable. And so that's our priority as we move into 2025.
So I'm going to ask you, this is a little off script, but this is just a personal nerdy question I have. And since I now know you were on the buying side I have always wondered, I'm like, I like learning the intricacies of like, how does this work on the granular level? And we don't need to get too granular, but can you just kind of walk through what that looks like on the buying side? Like, how does that work when these companies that, want to advertise and say, hey, I want to be, we'll use Candace as an example, placing those specific ads on her gluten-free website. Like, what goes into that? Because I think sometimes knowledge is power. I think a lot of creators, and I can't overgeneralize and speak for every creator, but I know that a lot of us, like, we wear so many hats. We can't possibly know all the things about how everything works, but I do think knowledge is power. Can you explain a little bit about how that looks, especially in this new phase in the industry where there is concerns about traffic diversification and AI maybe taking up some of that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's actually one of the things, and Jenny probably remembers this, is that when I came over from the buy side, I'd been on the publisher side previously in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had spent about 8 years at an independent ad agency, buying for brands like Subaru and General Motors, and
Mm-hmm.
Shark Ninja, who does all of the great
Mm-hmm.
products that we all use in our kitchens. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but when I came over, one of the key things that I found so interesting is that on the buy side, we're looking for your audience. Who goes to your site? Who are
Mm-hmm.
they? How valuable are they to us? Also, why are they going? Like, what is the content that they're going to consume? What's the environment that my ad is going to be in? And so really it's the folks that get to your site that is the reason that buyers go to advertise on your site. Obviously, it has to
Mm-hmm.
be great content. It has to look great. All of those things are table stakes when it comes to like a buyer wanting to be on your site. But when it comes to
Yeah.
why they pick your site over another site, it really has to do about who's reading that recipe, who's reading that
Mm-hmm.
article, who's consuming that content. And so it's really kind of about what is your unique audience proposition to the buy side. And so, like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you brought up gluten-free. So obviously an audience that seeks out gluten-free content is unique. So there are some brands that just like that is their target audience. That is who they want to get in front of. That is the most valuable person for them, especially if you're like a gluten-free product. But then
Mm-hmm.
also there are other indications of who someone is based on the content they consume. And so that's who they're looking to reach. And so brands will prioritize different audience segments. And that's kind of how they pick your site over someone else's site. And they do this programmatically really fast in milliseconds based on the information that someone like Mediavine shares to the buy side. So the
Yeah.
more signal we put out about the audience that's on your site, and about the content that's on your site, the more your traffic gets monetized and it's a higher. But it is really about who you're talking to in the community that you've developed.
Yeah. See, and I think like hearing you say that, it sounds a lot less complicated and a lot less scary and technical than I think maybe we think about. And I think so I would just like to add, I think that is a third trend for 2025, if we want to categorize it like that, of this increasing theme of really get to know your audience and be building your brand as a person so that you are attracting the right people. And we just had a conversation with Memberful, and really every group that we partner with, it really comes down to that of who is your audience. Do you know them? Do you have a relationship with them? It's not just this transactional thing. And really, I think, be building towards having an authentic, engaged community. So I think to follow up with that, are there specific strategies that you see food creators doing, or that they should prioritize to maximize, I will say, just like building their community as a subset of maximizing your ad revenue?
Yeah, so I think what you just said is part of my answer. It really is
Mhm.
about who you uniquely reach and how well you know them, how well they trust you, how much they engage with you. And so while at scale, the folks that come in from Google search or from a social network are very important, the people that are coming back to you all the time or going to your newsletter and interacting with you and following your direction back to the site, are really kind of your core audience. And so making sure you're serving them first and foremost is really important. I think one of the things that you can do is you can look at what is the content that resonates the most at the highest revenue? Like what recipes or content is driving the most revenue for my site? What about that do I need to duplicate and replicate multiple times on the site? And I think sometimes creators are in a position where they have to feel like they have to like make everyone happy and make something for everyone. And the reality is like the advertisers who are buying your site are not buying it because you reach everyone. They're buying it because you reach your unique audience. So I would say engaging in community development, creating like really great email strategies, really great social media connections to your site where people get to know your brand better and you get them to your site. The other thing I would say is follow the money. If you have certain pages that are resonating with advertisers, there are unique things about those pages that you need to try to replicate at a higher level to create more pages that are high value to advertisers. And mainly it's because can you attract that same audience again and again and again? So I would say community is the top of the list when it comes to high value.
Yeah, I feel like we now need t-shirts, Amanda, that say follow the money, by Amanda. Amanda, the CRO at Mediavine, says so. She knows things. But no, I think that's like a good catchphrase to remember of follow the money. Yeah, where is my content performing best? And I think this is just a follow-up question to that. I think those are all really good examples, but what types of content formats are you seeing on just like a large scale that are performing best? Whether that is video, short form, long form video. I think we know video performs, but is that accurate and valid to say, or are there some surprising formats that we should be looking out for 2025?
Yeah, I think ultimately long form content tends to be where advertisers want to be because the more engaged someone gets into a page, the more engagement they have with the ads. So if you think about it, the more time they spend with you on your content, the more time they're spending with the ads that are on your content. So that's really important. I think the other thing is the representation of video is really important. So even if it's not the full element of the page being about the video, but having the video elements attached to the page. I think what we're finding is that helps you with social platforms when it comes to driving traffic. It also helps you with Google. I think we've been seeing a big trend where video that's created in the YouTube format on your site really does help resonate with Google because it's their owned and operated property. So they obviously want to prioritize that type of content. And so the video might be why they find your content, but it may not actually be what they're looking for on the page. And so I think having video as part of your strategy is important, but not that it replaces the content or the approach that you've been taking. It's just kind of like a need to have on the page in addition to the content. I think we're starting to hear a lot of creators play around with different creative ways with short form content to get people to the site, and then for short form video to get them to the site, but then long form content to keep them on the site.
Yeah, that's good advice. You brought up Google again. These are just offhand questions that I'm thinking of as you're talking about this, because I have been wondering this. I am not a search engine expert in terms of which search engine does what. I know it from a high level / like academic level of understanding. But we know Google is one of the biggest search engines, if not the Goliath in the room, for better or worse. I know there's differing opinions on that. I mean, it gives us our livelihood, so in a lot of ways. But what about other search engines? Are we seeing trends towards using more for 2025 that you guys are seeing come through? Whether that's, what would it be, like Bing? I know some people are even considering like YouTube and Pinterest using it as search, or even certain social platforms. Or are there other search engines that we should have on our radar looking forward to the future?
Yeah, I think obviously Google, you have to have a solid Google strategy. I mean, like no one in the food blogging space can just be like, oh, that doesn't matter. It's very important. But I do think what's important to follow is the consumer use of Google is changing.
Mm.
So if you think
Yep.
about like the next generation of consumers, they're consuming and looking and searching for content very differently than you or I do.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then a lot of platforms that you wouldn't consider search are actually search. So Pinterest is a great example. It's a
Yeah.
search platform. While you can engage on it and it's social and you can also consume content on it, it also drives people to content on the owner's site. If you think
Mhm.
about TikTok, that is even a way that people are searching for things. And so if
Yep.
you never go to Google to search and your first stop is TikTok, it's not my first stop,
Yeah.
but I'm certain that once I let my children have social media, it might be their first stop.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about how the trend is changing. I think some of the changes we're seeing Google undertake right now in how they're showcasing recipes in their search results and how much they're trying to keep stuff on page is more of an indication of them seeing share shift in where the searches
Yeah.
are happening, more so than just a move to keep people away from content creator sites. I think it's a little bit of both, but I think it's more the
Yeah.
reaction to the fact that they're not the only place searches are happening. I think Pinterest is a perfect
Mhm.
example. It's been a trend that we've been seeing folks just starting to monetize Pinterest referral traffic better than other search engines. I think each site is unique. So I think if
Yeah.
your content is, you know, really navigating towards a Pinterest and Google, and that's where your focus should be, I don't think that you can focus in on 10 referrals all at once. I think you have to focus
Sure.
in on like, what are your top 3? And can you do those really well? Can you fine tune your content for those experiences? If you look down on the search engine lists, you know, you do see some percentage points going to Bing, or even DuckDuckGo is starting to like show up on
Yeah.
some of our
That was the
sites.
other one I was thinking of.
And so I think it's how relevant is it to your audience? But if it's your really great, if we're going to follow the money, if they're referring to your high value content, then they're probably a high value referral for you to look into. But I think the overarching trend, maybe not in 2025, but over the next 3 to 5 years, is I think people are going to find content in a very different way than they have found it for the past 10 to 15.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like that is honestly a huge trend to look out for as we're seeing a shift and just hearing, experts in the industry give their opinion. I mean, it's conjecture and theory to some degree because we don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that's something to listen to because I think, unanimously, I'm also hearing that just with the various conversations we're having with people. And I think that's a really important key. So thank you for making that clear in a way that's easy to understand. I think this to go along kind of with this conversation of search engines and all the regulations really and advocacy on a political front, because I think, we need to pay attention to what's happening. How do changes in privacy regulations and, third-party cookies impact strategies? What's on the horizon and what should we be looking out for to prepare in this upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a theme for a bit. I think
Mhm.
the deprecation of the third-party cookie in Chrome was kind of the focus because that was like the biggest signal that still exists. That's kind of slowed down in the sense of like it going away as quickly.
Yeah.
I think honestly that was seen for the past 3 years as being like one of the biggest threats to our monetization efforts. And because Google changed course and said, we're going to go in this user choice direction instead of just taking it
Yep.
away. And then some of the regulatory people were like, I don't think you can do that yet. We have to decide if we like that plan. It slowed that stuff down. So that's great
Mhm.
news for 2025, which is like the signal loss isn't happening at the rate we expected it. There's no cliff. It's
Yeah.
trickling out, but signal loss is happening. And so
Mhm.
I think the key is realizing that as a content creator, there are the things in your control. You can create great content. You can create great recipes. You can make your site look great. You can get your community built up. but there are things that you have to rely on partners like ourselves to do on
Yeah.
your behalf. Navigating 50 state laws and all the countries that you get traffic from is a lot of work. But if your ad
Mhm.
monetization partner like ourselves is your true partner, they're doing that on your behalf. And they're ensuring that you're not sending signals out in ways that you're not supposed to. And they're respecting the rules as we know them today and how we're navigating that clarity. So I think it's really about, do you have a partner that you feel is covering you in those bases? Because it's almost too complex to do uniquely on your own as a content creator.
Mhm.
And it's really confusing right now because there's not a lot of like clear rules. If it was easy and we could just say, don't do this, everyone would go, okay, I know what I can and can't do. But it's our job to stay on top of that. And I think that's what you should be asking of your ad monetization partnerships is, what are you doing on my behalf? How are you adjusting? We're doing things like we're changing our CMP, we're building out more signal efficiency. We have a privacy team on our legal team who tells us about every single change that happens across the states. There's 7 states that are even changing in January. So there's a lot of stuff that we're doing behind the scenes. But if you're working with a strong partner, I'd consider Mediavine one of the strongest. They should be doing that on your behalf for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. And I think to even just talk about how slow things are on a regulatory, government level, I attended, it was a meeting with Georgetown Knight Institute, because I live in the DC area, so everything is politically centralized. And so we went to this FTC meeting with, the technology officer who is very much involved in a lot of these technological changes and regulations. And Jenny sent over a great list of questions to ask about, questions around AI and understanding the future of the creator economy and what regulations and safeties are being put in place to look out for that. And it was really interesting to be there and be in this room with these people that have a lot of sway on a political regulatory level. And I sent this amazing list of questions that the Mediavine team put together. And it was funny because I got a reply from the FTC. The guy who was there, who was like, come ask me questions, like, we're here to advocate for you. And he literally wrote back and said, these questions are above my pay grade. And I was like, can you direct me to somebody who can help me? Never heard back from him. So I just want to, for better or worse, like, I do think these things take a lot of time. And I think it's important for creators to understand and know that as well, that as much as we're like, we are trying to advocate and trying to regulate like it's a years long game. And so to your point, like having partners like Mediavine or other people in the industry that have the resources and the people that can get in to help make these decisions is huge. And, I think together we can all use our collective voices to do that. So thank you for sharing that. Candace, you're back.
I'm back. Thank you. I was letting them know I've been a little under the weather, so I needed to breathe for a few minutes.
Totally understandable.
Thank you. And I've been listening to the whole conversation, and it's been very interesting. And so, I mean, I have some follow-up questions as well. And as a creator myself, I think it's so important that you guys are addressing these, and I'm so glad that you are. I know that third-party cookies are different, going to be different than we thought, but how do changes in privacy regulations and third-party cookies impact ad revenue strategies, and what should food bloggers do to prepare for the new?
We just covered that question.
Oh, okay. I'm so
sorry.
Because I
can add. I think what you're getting at though is like, what action can you personally take? I think so. To the point about your audience being the most important, when you know who your audience is, when they subscribe to your newsletter or when they enter any information about themselves on your site, that is signal that you now have permission to relay to advertisers. And so that is what in the industry, we call that a first party cookie. When someone else tells you who's on your site, it's a third party cookie. the more you can tell advertisers who's on your site, the higher the value is. But also by getting that consumer consent and engagement, you are following regulation. And so that's kind of the key, is that you're not just relying on someone else informing who's on your site. So I think building community is really important for that signal loss, because what advertisers will do is if they know less about your audience, they'll use what they do know about your audience and they'll infer the rest for your audience. So if they know what 5% or 10% of your traffic looks like, or who's coming to your site, they'll then infer that and probabilistically infer it for the rest of your site. So I think that's something for content creators to do to help kind of shore up their revenue stream, which is engage with your audience, build that niche audience. Don't feel the need to like be everything to everyone, but try to kind of create that really solid base of community. The other thing is that the signals are already going away. So you've already been living through this in a sense. Like it went away on Safari before, it went away on Mozilla before. Different regulations restrict what happens in different states. So you're kind of experiencing it, like you're in the middle of it. Like we're actually probably almost halfway through the signal loss. So what I would say to you is that like there's not anything to like mount an offense against. It's just like the continuous adjustment to what resonates on your site and what drives revenue. There isn't necessarily, with the Google change, there's no longer this cliff that we're preparing for. So we can all take a deep breath and we can be happy and know that Q1 is going to look, more similar to a usual Q1 than this, like, we don't know what's going to happen in Q1. So I think one thing I would say is maybe not that you shouldn't worry about it, you should be informed about it. But to the earlier point, you can't be an expert on it because there are no answers yet. There have been limited court cases with these regulations that tell us how they're going to enforce the rules. So as that happens, then there might be action we need to take. But for right now, I think the point is engage with your audience and have that addressable kind of strategy in your back pocket. And that's the really good long-term plan.
I love that, because I think that's been the ongoing question as food bloggers are wondering what they can do, and kind of just been sitting like waiting ducks trying to figure out what they should be doing. So I appreciate that response. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So speaking of monetization, what opportunities do you see being underutilized by food bloggers specifically right now, and how can they capitalize on those in 2025?
So I think we've covered a lot about the audience piece, so I don't want to like be repetitive and bore anyone. I think one of the strategies is to focus in on what's in your control and how you can monetize your site to the best of your ability. And so I think a lot of our attention goes towards like the sourcing of the traffic, and I think more attention needs to be paid to once the person is physically on your site, are you getting the most out of that visitor and out of that experience for the advertisers that are buying your site? So I think what I would say is my focus would be food bloggers are always the most sophisticated in the sense of like cutting edge. Like I will say, like you lead the industry when it comes to like independent content creators. So like I've always struggled to be like, here's the tip you don't know about. But I would say focusing in on impression averages and knowing that you're getting the most ad impressions on your most valuable pages and your most visited pages is like really key. You could be leaving money on the table just based on your ad experiences on your top 10 to 20 pages. So keying in to make sure that you're really fine tuning that ad experience. And then also just looking at where traffic's going on your site and don't accidentally redirect them to like a non-favorable part of your site. If your highest value content is the recipe, move people to that recipe faster. Don't have them go into like a category page, then hope they get into the recipe page. Like really lead the witness and like push them in the direction that you know that they need to get to for it to be monetizable for your site. And then I think just looking at high performing posts, those are kind of key things that I would say is learn from what works, follow the money. I think I'm going to get a t-shirt for that when I come to Tastemakers. I'll just say,
Oh
follow
yeah,
the money.
I'll be looking for it.
Love that. Well, I appreciate that. And so really just to wrap things up here, if you could give food bloggers one piece of advice to future-proof their revenue in 2025, besides what we've already talked about, which has been great, what would that be?
Uh, focus on what you do best and create that content that audiences just cannot get enough of. And I would say focus on really solid partnerships, not just folks like ourselves who are in ad monetization, but in the partnerships that really help drive your business and help you stay smarter. I think community is kind of a theme that has naturally kind of growing into 2025, but it takes a village. It's gonna be a lot about, are you partnering with folks that are helping you navigate these headwinds and these things that are tough, and you can't do it on your own. It's way too complicated. So focus in on what partnerships really help drive your business and prioritizing the engagement with those partners. That would be the tip I would leave you with.
Love that. Well, thank you. I appreciate all of that.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been such a good conversation. Thank you for answering a lot of our questions, because I think it's nice to just level set and be like, hey, where are things at? What do we need to know? What should we be prioritizing? And I think, you did a really wonderful job of just making it clear and concise, so that we have some things to look forward to and work on for the upcoming year and providing our amazing Tastemaker audience here. So again, thank you for sharing your expertise and joining us on Tastemaker Talk. Amanda, where can our listeners get in touch if they'd like to learn more about Mediavine or get in touch with you or a member of your team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you want to head over to mediavine.com and reach out to us there, that would be great. Also reach out to us on socials. We'll, just like us, we'll funnel that traffic wherever it comes from. But I will also, oh, Jenny's giving me the prompt of publishers at mediavine.com is a great email address to hone in on. And then see me at Tastemakers. This will be my first, and I'm super excited to be joining the group this year.
We're excited to have you. And if you are listening and you haven't got your ticket yet, be sure to grab that. We'll drop the link in the chat. Every time we say that, I think of teenagers being like, W in the chat. But it
You're
is
so on trend.
Yeah, it is a win to get a Tastemaker ticket because there's only a few left. Like Abby said, we've opened up a few more because we sold out of our amount, and we opened up a few more. And so, yeah, we'll have a fun time in Las Vegas of all places. We're very excited to hang out. And you can also book 15-minute one-on-ones with Mediavine. They have a great lounge at Tastemaker Conference, so definitely go spend time and see them in there. I think they have some fun surprises for you also. So thank you, Mediavine. We would not be here today without your support and without your continued just true support of Tastemaker Conference. So we look forward to continuing to work together and see you in Las Vegas.
See you in Vegas.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.